up. I'll just go to sleep.
Yep. And all the electronics were out, so I've had to be outside putting up the in the electric box. So yeah,
All right.
but I'm here.
So we are live. Welcome everybody. My name is Brian Kwong. I'm the founder of the Add1Challenge, where we learn to speak a language together and and aim to hold a 15-minute conversation in 90 days. And please mute your mic if you're not speaking. And today we're here for the Add1 finale, where we pick one winner out of the 3 finalists, and we'll give away a flight ticket to whatever language they're learning during the Add1 challenge. But before that, we are going to go into a burning question session, so that participant can ask the 3 polyglots here any questions. Actually, there are more than 3 here. Polyglots here. Any questions they want regarding to language learning. So, hello everybody. Hi Amy.
Hi.
Dominique. So, we are here to ask, so anybody have any questions for Richard or Kevin or Jan? Nobody have any questions? Say something, somebody? Yeah, sure, go ahead. Just unmute your mic and ask your question. Zaina, can you unmute your mic first?
I can hear you, but it's going to be lagging, so do you want me to, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll just read my question then. This goes to all of the polyglots, and it's more about life as a polyglot as opposed to like you have for people wanting learning. What suggestions or did that work?
What suggestions do you have for people wanting to make a living out of language learning? Got it. So she's lagging a little bit, so I just read her message. I just read her question in the chat box. So who wants to take this one? Jan? Richard? Kevin?
Yes, I can start with this question. Yeah, this is an interesting question, of course, and I'm sure many of the polyglots, many people in the community, they are asking these questions. They're asking themselves this question, I don't know, maybe pretty often. So what you can do, yeah, of course, we have a few very good examples in the community. Like if you look at Benny, of course, we also have Audio Riches, for example, or even Brian with the Add1Challenge. So starting a blog is one thing that you can do. Making a business out of a blog is a little bit more difficult, but there are many online courses. There are many courses where you can learn how you can make money with a language blog. So that's one thing that I've been seeing for the last few years with people in the community. You can also create language courses. It's not very easy. It's what we do at Language Boost. Another example is Mike Campbell with Glossica. So yeah, you can develop language courses, a language blog. Of course, the easiest way to make money is to sell your time by teaching languages. That's the easiest way. That's something that you could do today or tomorrow. But I think even working as a language teacher and starting a language blog or becoming like an authority in the field of language learning is going to help you to find more students. So yeah, those are the 3 things that I would be where I would think about if yeah, in order to answer this question.
Great.
So
Richard?
just to sort of give you, I come from quite a different angle on this. When I first started working with languages, I was working in customer services and working in technical support, and I did that in 8 languages. So I would offer my services to different teams within the organizations that I was working with, and took calls, took issues on for people, for clients, for our customer base all around the world in 8 languages usually. Normally they're the languages that are most sort of common, like French, German, Spanish, Italian, these sorts of languages where you have these types of call centers, and I found that a really good basis for me to start changing between languages, really getting a professional experience of how to use my languages in a real business context. And then I found that I was able to look for positions where they would train me up. So the kinds of options that I remember seeing open at that time, and I believe that you can still find them today, things in marketing teams where they have an element of foreign language reach, where they would potentially need somebody who can speak a foreign language and also do marketing. You often find accountancy. I know Maureen's in this field, but you find a lot of accountancy firms want people with language skills so that they can work with accountancy divisions across the globe. Maybe they're an international firm where they have accountancy departments, or an accountancy firm itself. There are other people in the community who work in accountancy too. So I think there are examples out there for how you can use that. Another way you can use your languages is something that I do now, which is using social media. So I work for a social media management agency called eModeration, and we have a sister company called Propeo. And for that, what we do is online moderation, community management, social listening, engagement with communities on behalf of clients. And we do that using various methods, so checking language that's used in the communities, making sure it's okay, and also actually creating content, or localizing or transcreating content for the local markets so that it's appropriate. So there are the ways that you can use your language. And then the final thing that I'd say is looking for opportunities that combine with other skills. So languages are a really, really good thing to have when you combine them with other things. So part of my career has been in diplomacy. So I worked for the British Foreign Office, and I got to use my languages in that work. You can do that with any other job. So if you've trained in the medical services, you can find positions around the world and use your languages for traveling with patients. The key and the one common thread between all of these things is that you need to make the effort to seek out the multilingual aspect of your role. So no matter what you do, if you don't do that, if you're not proactive in it, it won't come running to you, because the honest sort of real picture of the world is that if you're looking for a role and you get a job, people don't normally look for people with more than, say, 2 or 3 languages max, and that's because they're not that easy to find. So if you want to use more than that, you have to really make an effort to do it, to offer your services, to go that extra mile, and to enrich your role and to provide additional service to your company. I hope that's been a comprehensive answer
Wow.
to you.
That's very comprehensive. Yeah, there are many. I mean, there are many ways to make. I think it comes down to like what is it? What interests you? What suits your skills and what suits your interests? In regard to language learning, I mean, Jan and Richard just named so many like wide variety of ways that you can make a living with language learning, or using your skills to make a living from it. So it comes down to to the individual of like what works for you and what interests you. All right, so Dominique, who's here, but she her mic doesn't work, so she sent me a message. She asked, how do Polyglot keep up with multiple languages at a time? Like you have more than one languages. how do you keep up? How do you manage them? How do you maintain them?
I suppose I'll take this one because I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Richard said everything I wanted to say in the last one. So
Yeah.
one thing I'll say is you can put kind of simple rules in place that make maintaining multiple languages very easy. One that I've put into place for myself, for example, is the language I'm actively learning is German, so that's like my study time. But I'm also trying to maintain French in addition to other languages. And one of the things I do is I have a rule that if I'm in my car and I'm listening to something in my car, it has to be in French. So when I'm in my car, automatically it's going to be either a French podcast over the radio or French music. And I don't have a set limit or a certain amount of time per day that I need to spend on French, but I just know that whenever I get in my car, boom, that's the rule. Listen to French. And those kind of simple rules can really help you, get in regular practice without, worrying about, oh, where am I going to fit this into my schedule? Because I know that maybe several times a day, certainly several times a week, I'm going to be in my car for an extended period of time. So it just makes the choice even easier.
So coming up with creative ways to integrate your exposure of different languages into your life.
Yes.
All right, cool. So we're gonna go take a question from the Add1Challenge email subscribers. What would be your tips for improving listening skills concerning fast spoken language? For example, French.
I'll sort of say that I think when it gets to languages that I've spoken quickly, and some of them definitely are, it can feel that certainly some of the sounds get swallowed up in the language, and I think that's what presents quite a difficult scenario for learners. And I'd say that maybe watching things with subtitles helps to train your ear to listen out for things, and you've always got the rewind button. I found that that's a useful thing to be able to do. And if it's in conversation, actually stopping people and saying, "You say that again," also helps, because you see where people then start cutting corners in the language, and where there are natural ways to sort of condense the spoken language, which I think native speakers particularly do very, very often. And then doing things like that, I find that will just naturally help you to listen more and more to the way that is actually done in real time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Kevin and Jan, do you have anything you would like to add?
Sorry, I missed the question.
The question is
yeah.
The question is, listen up, Jan. The question is, what do you how do you improve your listening skills if a language is fast spoken? Like, for example, some people speak Chinese really fast. How do you, when you're learning Chinese, how do you practice your listening skills?
I would not use them as my conversation partner. I think that's the first thing. Yeah, no, I would choose a conversation partner that speaks clearly, that adjusts to my level, or maybe a little bit above my level.
Very good.
And that's it. And if people speak, like in the movies, if they speak fast, then I will just make sure that I have subtitles, or that I can watch it again and look up the new words. Yeah, I wouldn't practice with them anyway. So.
Got it. Choose your partner wisely. Yes, that goes with everything. All right. Kevin, do you have anything to add to that? For example, French. This guy asked specifically French.
I mean, there's a few different things. One thing, is particularly with French, is that learning materials for French tend to be very, very slow, very carefully spoken out, so much so that they pronounce things that most native speakers of French won't ever pronounce, just in common conversation. So I recommend to try to find or try to move to native materials as quick as possible, or at least try to get as much exposure to native materials and native speakers actually speaking, so that you're not getting the stilted book version of French, you're getting like the natural spoken version as much as you can.
Got it. Cool. All right. So let's see if do we have any questions in the, yes, Amy? Unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello,
Can you hear
Amy.
me?
Yeah, I
Hi.
can hear you. Hey.
I had a question about language partners because I find, like I'm sure most people do, that speaking is a really useful way to practice a language and learn a language. But for me, I guess my question is, do you find it's obviously useful to speak to natives, but do you find it a deterrent to speak to other learners? So I find sometimes it can be difficult when someone's a beginner like you, they can't correct you and they're making the same mistakes as you, and it's, I guess, easier to build up bad habits. So I guess my question is, how do you get lots of speaking practice with lots of different people of different levels, but still manage to control bad habits and spot when you're making mistakes, etc.?
Great question.
Wow, that's a question and a half. I'd say that at the moment, actually, I'm going through exactly this, Amy, with Finnish. So I'm in Helsinki at the moment, and I'm studying at the university. And I've got these lovely books for my Finnish course. I'm on this book now at the moment for my second book, Finnish. So my teacher's a native Finn. She's really, really good at adapting her speech, and she speaks only in Finnish pretty much the whole time. Every now and again, she'll say the odd thing in English, but that's it. In the street, I speak as often as I possibly can, asking anything I can in Finnish, regardless of whether or not I know the answer. But on italki, I chose very purposefully a non-native speaker of Finnish, someone who's an advanced speaker of Finnish, but a foreigner. And I find she's really, really good at explaining the grammar because she's been through it all before. And also, I don't mind if she doesn't know a word or if she has to look up a word, because it makes you feel like, okay, so that process always goes on. Whereas when you speak to a native, they just know everything, or you're not sure if it's exactly right. Whereas at least with this additional sort of element in my learning, I feel quite encouraged that I'm speaking to somebody who's been through the process, who is showing me some nice shortcuts, because she knows that I want to express certain things, and she knows really well how to explain that or to get around things at the beginning levels that she couldn't do either. And I found that really useful. And I've also got a Canadian friend living here in Helsinki who's also given me some great tips. And I ask her about Finnish, and I have a few little exchanges with her in Finnish. And she does the same thing. She gives me these tips and tricks as how to do things. And I find that if she doesn't know, because she's already way further advanced than I am in the language, she'll go away and consider what my question, and then come back to me again, and I really, really like that. I also find it really helpful when people write and speak. So if I don't know something, I like people to write things down as well. That's just me. I don't know if not everyone's the same, but I find that really, really useful. And then I write it all out.
So you're saying all levels, all levels of speaking helps. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for me, yeah, and even on my course actually today, I was whenever I'm partnered up with anyone, and their tendency is to go straight to English, and I just say, okay, and then I just listen to what they say, but then I reply in Finnish, and I continue in Finnish, and the Brazilian partner that I had today in my class, he said to me, he goes, you're just speaking Finnish, and I said, yeah, well, you want to learn Finnish, don't you? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, if you don't speak Finnish, you're not going to practice it to know it. You're never going to learn it. So even if you don't know it, we do have phones, and we can look at Google Translate and translate a word if we don't know it. It's not the end of the world. And I'll wait. I won't. I'm quite patient. I will wait for you to find the word, and you can even show me both versions in either Portuguese or in English, and we'll both learn something. So I don't really mind at this stage. Yeah, I may learn a mistake from him, but I'm not only speaking to him. I think it's important to have a nice sort of wide breadth of people you speak to. I'm not always in a position where I get to speak to advanced speakers who aren't natives. Definitely that's the case in Macedonia. I've never met many sort of very good proficient speakers who are not native in the language. Whereas here, actually, there are quite a few that I've come across, which is really, really beneficial, and I'm really enjoying it. But there we go. That's my sort of longish answer.
So let's get with the next question. Okay, it's a very basic question. This is from one of the email subscriber. Carlos asked, "How do you learn vocabulary and keep it refreshed?" So Jan, why don't you go? Kevin, why don't you go first?
I probably have like the not the best edge to this. I just go for as much exposure as possible. Especially if I'm trying to learn something in a particular content area, say some, I don't know, just as an example, a sport or some area, or history or science or something. I just watch as much within that content area as possible, and then I'll notice that the same words will keep coming up over and over and over and over again. And if I haven't already looked them up, once I've seen it, 4, 5, 6 times, I'll say, okay, I probably should look it up now. And then, like, it's interesting because once I've recognized that lack, like I see that word and I'm like, wow, I should know that. And once I look it up, it seems to stick a little bit better. Instead of learning a word before you need it, learning a word just after you need it just seems to be, at least for me, so much better for my memory. So.
Got it. Okay. Jan, how do you learn vocabulary and keep it?
Yes, how do I learn vocabulary? Well, actually, this is what we have been focused on. What we have been focusing on for the last year with language was, of course. I won't give a promotion here, but I will just tell how I do it. So when I start learning a language, I always start the same way. I always try to learn the most important vocabulary first, because the first conversations I'm going to have in a language, they're always going to be the same. How are you? Where are you from? For how long have you been here? Why did you learn the name of the language? Native speakers are always going to ask you the same questions. So what I do is I cheat a little bit and I prepare the answer for these questions, but I also learn the most essential verbs that you need. And as important verbs are verbs like to be, to have, can, to maybe to give, to, these are the verbs that you need all the time. And especially like in Asian languages where you don't need to conjugate the verbs, once you know the basic structure of the language, I would say 50 or maybe 100 words, you can say a lot of things. And I've been using this strategy with French, and I'm doing the same with Russian. With Russian, it's a little bit more tricky because it's very difficult grammar in Russian. But yeah, I find that the most important thing to start with. So to learn the most essential vocabulary first. The question was, how do you learn this vocabulary? 2 stages. Number 1, input. So we have a list with the 500 most important words in each language. We have manually picked them, and then we have example sentences. So they always say that you should learn vocabulary in context. That's what I do as well. So do not just learn the words in an Anki deck or something. No, first I have the words in example sentence. We have a picture, we have audio. I listen to it, and then I might do that for a few weeks. And after I can at least translate it from the target language back into English. If I can do that with, I would say, 50% of the context, so 50% of the 500 most important words, that's when I would start to implement all these vocabulary with the example sentence in an Anki deck and revise it on Anki every day when I have time to kill. For example, when I'm waiting for, waiting for the train, waiting for an airplane, or maybe in an airplane. That's how I start. And then when you can speak the language and you have, say, let's say a B1 or a B2, yeah, then you can do more reading or watch movies. That's a strategy that you can use later on, but this is how I start.
Richard, how do you learn vocabulary?
Actually, I focus on the words and think of what they remind me of. So if they remind me of something, if there are some sort of mental hooks that I've got to help them remain more memorable, stay memorable, because learning a word and learning and committing it to memory, it has to for me, there are words that simply are memorable because I enjoy the sound for whatever reason. I'll give you an example. In Finnish, for example, this week, so my lesson's been on nature and some nature words. And the Finnish word for a crow, the bird a crow, is varis. And I remember varis because I like Game of Thrones, and they have crows in Game of Thrones, and one of the characters is called Varys, and Varys is the guy that goes around and finds all the information out and talks about everyone. And they use the crows to send information in Game of Thrones to all different people. So the word Varys really, really sticks very easily in my mind. I agree with Jon about learning the most important vocabulary, but sometimes when you're learning a language, you get weird vocabulary that you don't even know in your own language that's really common. So here's an example on my desk that I bought today. This is I bought this for my wife and daughter to try, and this is lakkahillo, and lakka is the word for a cloudberry. Now, if you've heard of a cloudberry, I'm very impressed, but it's something that you get really in Scandinavia, and there may be a picture of it here. You can have a look on Wikipedia and see if you can find it. It kind of looks a bit like it's related to a raspberry, I think, but it only grows in certain parts of the northern hemisphere, I think. And so this is jam made of it, but this word I found quite easy to remember because it reminds me of the English word lacquer, which is the dialect that we used in the northwest of the UK, Liverpool, for hairspray, hair lacquer, we call it. And in Macedonian it's called lac. So strangely enough, it's a hairspray. So you can imagine spraying this on your hair, or in my case, it made it all fall out. But there's that kind of stuff, and then I also look at words like hillo. Hillo is the word for jam in Finnish, and it's really easy because it's got the word hill in it. So you just think of a hill or a mountain of jam that doesn't quite make a mountain form, but it falls into like a hill because it starts falling, seeping down. It won't make a peak. So these are the kinds of weird things that go on in my head. Welcome to my world. And then I find using them in context and then seeing them. So every time I look at things, I will always think of the word. So I will read things constantly when I'm out and about town. I will look for words. I'll look for words that are similar. Always doing things like that. I find it a lot of fun. And all what Jon said and all what Kevin said too. But that's just my extra little added crazy bit at the end.
Great, thank you for sharing your really good imagination of learning how to remember vocabulary. I think there are many ways of learning vocabulary. You just gotta find. You can try all the suggestions that were given in this conversation, and then see what works for you and see what sticks. And I think that's the best way. So there's two more quick. Let's see if we can do it quickly, okay? Because I just found it in the Add1Challenge in action. People who are in the Add1Challenge, they asked this question. So Nikki asked the question. Yes, Nikki. Nikki, she asked she's been trying to have Skype conversations with people, and when the internet is very slow, she can't there's no video, it's only audio, and she have a hard time understanding people with only audio. Do you have any suggestions of how to, besides getting a faster internet, do you have any other suggestions with that?
I've got something. It's not necessarily helpful in the moment, but one thing I always recommend to people is record the conversations if you can. Because there are ways to record audio only, so you don't have to worry about being on camera every time. But in a situation like that, though it doesn't help you clarify while you're sitting and learning from the person directly, it might be worth a try to listen to it after the fact and see if you understand more, when you're outside of the moment and you don't have the stress of worrying about how the connection is, or even worrying about what you're going to say, and you're just listening to the entire audio from an observer standpoint, that might be an easy way to salvage what may have been lost while you're sitting there and trying to speak to the person directly.
Great. Any other suggestion for Nikki?
I don't know. Use voice message instead of a Skype call.
Voice message. I think she does that already, but I think she wanna have a conversation, but she have problem understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I always get people to write things down. So if I can't understand, I just say, look, please write the sentence down. So it's not always possible. I actually have some voice issues with my my Finnish teacher on italki, and sometimes I can't hear what she's saying, and I just say, please write it, and then she writes it, and then it's easier to understand when I see it visually. I can read along with what she's saying, and then I can give an answer. Strangely enough, she can hear me fine, so maybe it's me. I don't know. But all I'd say as well is, Nikki, I'm seriously impressed that you're just not appearing upside down or something like that on your video, because that was normally your problem.
She's crazy. Hope these answers help you, Nikki. One last question that we're gonna answer before we go into next session is from Michelle. She asked, is there any tips for making the jump from intermediate level to advanced? It seems like she's kind of stuck, in the intermediate level and before jumping advanced. So, what are your takes on that? How do you jump from intermediate to advanced?
This is not perhaps the sexiest of answers, but just getting as much input as possible, just upping it, to whatever degree you've been doing it, trying to up it more and more and more. If you haven't been reading books, read books. If you haven't been listening to the radio, listen to the radio. Try to ingest as much content as you possibly can, and you might not see it right away, but you'll start progressing just quicker and quicker, because you just try to digest as much as you can.
Got it. Jan?
Yeah, I would say not everyone has this opportunity, of course, but to surround yourself, to live the language instead of learning a language. You know what I mean? So surround yourself with more native speakers, and do more in the language. Watch more movies, radio, read in the language. I think that's what can bring you from a B2 to a C1, or maybe even a C2. So yeah, like living the language. If you have the opportunity, living the language, and otherwise you can. What I did with my French, my French is not. It's not at the C levels, but what really helped me to get from a B1 to a B2, well, to a good B2, I think I can say that, is so reading articles together with my teacher, or watching videos on YouTube, and then discussing the content of those videos afterwards. And then they're gonna come, like you're learning. You can learn lots of advanced vocabulary from discussing these kind of topics. And of course, I always write those new vocabulary down in a spreadsheet and I revise them later. Yeah, that's what really helped in the case of French.
Richard?
I'd say there's no jumping involved. You can't jump from intermediate to advanced. It just
crawl. What do we do?
Yeah. No, I mean, I just don't think that you can jump. Maybe, I mean, I know the idea of you want to go through into this advanced stage, but I see this as a really gradual process, and I think that it's doing exactly what Kevin and Jan have said. You can start by, when you're at kind of the B levels, you're already looking at things that are potentially advanced as well. Like news articles. I remember when I was doing my B1 for Turkish, we were discussing things like military service and these kinds of things that are not your sort of everyday things anyway, and intermediate level. When you're getting to the more advanced stages, I think it's looking at more complicated, maybe longer text, more sort of going from your metro. The metro newspapers that you get in different countries, and you have short news articles. They're really cool from the sort of I'd say intermediate to going further stages for some of those news articles. And you can highlight. They're short, they're sweet, to the point. They may use some nice, sort of nice language that you can copy, emulate, and use in your own speech. And doing what Jon said, talking about them, but also trying to use elements that you've seen written down and highlighted, and actually making it a point of using those phrases and that terminology in your conversation. And then you can move forward and use more advanced materials. In English, for example, you've got more serious newspapers, and you can find those equivalents in different countries. So you're getting more into French Le Monde, or whatever you want to sort of use. But you'll be able to ask native speakers what good newspapers are around for reading, and which ones are more complicated, which ones are easier, and then move backwards and forwards so that you get different styles as well. Because at the advanced stages, really, you're looking at different styles and different ways of using language. So when you want to get to a really good C2 or beyond level in a language, you need to be able to recognize those different registers and know, okay, so why are we using this word here, and it's not appropriate to use it on the street with my friends. Why am I using this? Why am I reading this word in this context, but in another situation, in a book maybe, it's not used. It could be because it has a different spin, a different flavor, and they're only things that you can do with this extensive reading of different sources of materials and listening to different sources of the language.
Great, thank you. All right, these are all great suggestions. So now let's move on to the last section. Of the Add1 finale, where we give away a flight ticket. So let's quickly introduce the three finalists. So why don't you just tell us where you're from, what language did you learn, and what's one thing you got out of the Add1Challenge? Like what, or your language, or what you learned in the 3 months. Anything that you want to say. So, who wants to go first? Tina? Yes. You go first. Tina?
Okay,
Yeah,
can
there
you
go.
hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Hopefully the internet's working a lot better now. Okay. So my name is Zaina, and I am from the States. I was learning Spanish for my Add1Challenge, and what I got from the Add1Challenge. In addition to learning a different language and meeting new people, I felt empowered to learn several things on my own, not just languages. Seeing that I could get to such an advanced stage, or more advanced than I was before, by doing something on my own and on the internet, I realized that I could do really anything. I could learn more languages, I can learn instruments, I can learn, like, do anything on my own, that I didn't need a teacher or to sign up for a certain class or to pay so much money in order to become successful. So that's what I learned.
Great. Marie?
My turn now.
Yeah.
My name's Maureen, and I'm from Scotland. I had studied European languages starting when I was younger, from sort of teenage years. But I always wanted to learn a really different kind of language, and hadn't really decided which one. And then I started doing a bit of research, and an opportunity came up to stop over in China for a couple of days. And I thought, well, why not learn some Chinese? So I had the confidence from other people doing the Add1Challenge before me, but really before I started, I was posting on the page, I'm really unconfident about tones and a completely different language. I don't think I'd be able to do this one. But I think if it wasn't for the challenge, I don't think I would have even tried. So I'm glad I did. So it's taught me not to be scared of different languages from different language families, and to have a go at anything, really.
And I really like one of your quote that you said. I'm going to use it as a quote now, like that, because most people are scared of the tones of Chinese. What do you say about the tones? What's your view on the tones now?
I'd rather learn tones than grammar.
Exactly. That's true for, I think, at least for me. So thank you for that quote. So last person, Edmund, he said that his electricity is gone out, keep blowing out, so he can't be with us anymore. But he was learning Italian and he made a lot of progress. He actually did 2 Add1 challenges in a row, and he was also a really good inspiration for all of us. But he can't be here, but he'll be watching it later on. So before we announce the winner, does the polyglots, you want to say anything? You want to share like what you think about the finalists?
I just want to say I think everyone did a phenomenal job. Learning a language is not easy, and if you haven't had a lot of experience with it before, it's really scary and it's a big undertaking. So the fact that you've all gotten this far, you really should all pat yourselves on the back. Great job, guys.
Jan, anything you want to say about the finalists, or?
Yeah, well, what else can I say? Yeah,
Something good.
Something good, huh? Everyone did a good job. Yeah. Okay, so Ima, yeah, you learned Italian. Was a second challenge. You seem to speak fairly good Italian. Pretty impressed by that. So congrats to him. Then Zina, I think that's how you pronounce your name. I had the same problem. I mean, I learned French in school for 4 years and never got to speak the language. But then you study by yourself, you practice for a few months really intensively, and then all of a sudden you can speak the language. And I think this is a great accomplishment as well. Yeah, you also seem to speak very good in the video, especially after 3 months. So very nice accent as well, I think. So congrats with that. And then Maureen, with Mandarin, yeah, I speak Mandarin myself. I know it's a difficult language to learn. I think you're doing better than I was doing after 5 months in China, or at least maybe as good. And that's very impressive for someone who studies the language at home. Of course, you have the help of the community of the Add1Challenge, but still, great achievement and congrats.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I think, Zina, I liked what you said, that you feel now that you can do anything. I think that's a really, really nice quote after having done that. And I think, I mean, regardless of how well you did with your Spanish, and you did a very good job, to go with the language when you've lived in a country and you've been exposed to a language for a long time, but you're not feeling you're making progress, and then to take that decision to really go forward with it and to advance it, I think is really commendable, and it's no mean feat. And I think you're reaping the rewards, not just linguistically, but also that that you've empowered yourself, and that you can do whatever you put your mind to. And I think that's a great lesson to have got from this. And I think that you'll take that with you, and I'm really, really pleased that you feel that way, because I think that's probably even more than the language. To me, I think that is a really, really good thing about language learning that many people don't see as a benefit from what we do. So really, really pleased that you said that. Thank you. And Eamon, I think that he did a great job doing 2, as everyone's, as it said, 2 Italian challenges back to back. And I remember his first one, and watching him come on from sort of on both challenges, it's really impressive. And there was a bit of a jump from what I remembered from the first challenge to the start of the second one, because of the time away and practicing it in between. But hats off, it was really, really good. And I think trying to use more complicated structures and getting more into the language is always a demanding task. When you're learning it, and I think he did himself proud to do that. So well done to him too, even though he can't be here right now. And Maureen, not only did you learn Chinese, but your cat learned Chinese. So what can I say? I mean, Mario impressed me no end with his meow, meow. I think that will probably stay with me forever, and I think that he deserves to win this challenge, and so I'm voting to send him to China. I just thought he was good. Unfortunately, Brian vetoed that vote for Mario, so I don't know. I don't know why, and I think he's a meanie. Next time, I think he should let me have free reign to vote for cats. I think it's catist. But seriously, though, you know, I've obviously heard from you and watched you with many language challenges, and I think some things that people may not know listening to this is that I know that you've been doing other challenges as well at the same time. So what you did with Chinese is impressive, but it's even more impressive when you think that you just got a really good mark on a Scottish Gaelic course that you've been doing. At the same time, you're doing Gaelic, you know, with the distance learning, and you've been carrying on with your other languages as well. And so, I mean, how you find the time with that and your full-time job and teaching your cat, I don't know, but it's really good that you were using your Chinese as well outside and using that opportunity, because doing Chinese, and I've been through this myself, I know the pain barrier of doing a language like Chinese that's completely new territory, and you're not in an environment where you hear the language that often. You have to put yourself out there. It is daunting at first. So totally understand where you're coming from. But like everyone said, well done to all three of you, four of you including Mario. And you know, I'm really pleased to have been part of this Add1Challenge, to watch you and to see you all grow. Thank you and well done to everyone who's taken part. Again, it always humbles me to be part of this. Thank you, Brian, for sharing it.
All right. Well, as you can see, we know all three finalists did a really amazing job, and all three of you supported the community, like interacted. It's just so this one's really tough. However, including Mario, we can only have one winner. All right. Even if we include Mario, we can have one. We don't want to send her cat and not send. And what is she gonna do if she can only say Mao? So we have to pick one winner. So the Add1Challenge winner for this time around is Maureen. Woo!
Thank you so much, everyone.
Good job. Good job. Awesome.
Congratulations, Maureen.
Really happy with that. I can't wait to go back. I
Congratulations.
only had 2 days, so I really want to go back and see it a lot more. And one good thing that's just happened recently is my local airport last month has just launched direct flights to Beijing. And I had my eye on them. I thought, well, I'm going to take that flight at some point when I can save up again. But I'd like to say as well, the other two finalists were fantastic. I did actually vote for them myself. And I have studied Spanish and Italian at university. They're my main two foreign languages, and I can say the level of both of you was fantastic, and I think you were worthy winners.
Great. Yeah, so it's really hard to pick this one. So how do you feel about winning?
Excited. My hands are really sweating. I'm really nervous.
Well deserved. It's well deserved. So thank you so much for your participation and your hard work and sharing. Especially, I mean, for those people who don't know, you guys should somehow share the video of how Maureen teaches her cat to say Mao. I don't know how.
It is on my YouTube channel. I can put it on the page again on Facebook so they can have a look. Because they'll watch this and they'll like, what are you talking about, that cat video?
Exactly. So just want to let people know, like, doing the challenge, one of the assignment was make a fun video, and then she showed her cat learning Chinese. But it was great. So thank you so much for everybody who participated, who was watching, and I also want to thank the three polyglots, Richard and Kevin and Jan. Would you guys share quickly where people can find more about you and what you guys do? Richard?
Okay, so you can find me on Facebook. My Facebook page is Speaking Fluently, but also join me in Thessaloniki at the end of August for the Polyglot Conference. We're taking registration still, but it's filling up really, really fast. So if
October,
you
you mean October?
Yeah, October. Yeah, the end of October. It's the last weekend of October, so join us in Thessaloniki for the Polyglot Conference. We've got some great talks from some really interesting people, and it's going to be a weekend of fun on the coast in Greece with lots and lots of people, including some of the people on this call, and look forward to seeing you. It's polyglotconference.com. Sign up there.
Great. Kevin?
Yeah, you can find me predominantly at my website, which is www.languagehero.co. That's CO. But I'm on Twitter, send out lots of updates, and I'm just generally around the community. I'm generally in and out of Add1 challenges. I'll be in Thessaloniki in October, so if anyone sees me, please come say hi. And yeah, I'm just here to support the community. So I'm sure if you're looking for me, you'll find me someplace.
Thank you, Kevin. Jan?
You can find me at our website, www.languageboost.biz, B-I-Z. You can also add me on Facebook or meet me in Thessaloniki or in Berlin or wherever, or just add me on Facebook, my personal account.
All right, thank you. That's it. That was fun. Thank you for participating. I'll see you guys next time. Join the Add1 Challenge. See ya.